Ellen is ZenlessZoneZero's most absurd DPS. But like most other characters released at launch, she has a few hidden strengths and things to consider that are really only discoverable after testing her out extensively post-release. Today, I'll be breaking them down alongside a kit rundown, combo explanation and showcase, alongside how to build her and who can work well with her. And we have to settle the argument of which is best here. Before we get into it though, if you enjoy this sort of content or want to see more ZenlessZoneZero, be sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Ellen's kit revolves around something known as flash freeze charges. They change certain parts of her kit, and you could store up to 6 total. In general, they make things like her basic attacks do more damage, but do also get consumed after enhancing them. On that note, let's talk about her basics. Ellen's basic attacks have 3 total parts and 2 forms, normal and ice infused. If you want to do the most damage with her basic attacks, you want to focus on doing this 3rd basic attack string when it is ice infused. The reason for this is that the first 2 parts of her basic attack combo are very weak, and when her attacks are unenhanced, they do very little. You want to avoid both of these at all costs. Take a look at the comparison of just how much damage you do with her 3rd attack in ice form versus her 1st and 2nd with no ice whatsoever. The multiplier on this attack as opposed to the others is huge, but a question you might also now have because of this is, how do you get these flash freeze charges? Or how do you take advantage of her 3rd basic attack string? Well, first, we need to explain Ellen's unique dodge. Ellen's dodge is tied to her flash freeze generation, and there is a special ability you can use when holding down dodge or double tapping it twice. This is known as roaming hunt. Ellen becomes invulnerable briefly after entering into roaming hunt and becomes faster with a special animation when in it. The most important thing to know is that when performing a basic attack in roaming hunt form, you will gain 1 flash freeze charge and also a bit of damage with this quick attack. If you decide to hold down this attack instead, you perform a charge attack which has a longer attack animation but also gives you 3 flash freeze charges instead of 1. Side note, if you perform a quick assist with Ellen, she gains a quick charge effect which makes this animation much shorter. So although all parts of her kit are important, most of Ellen's gameplay begins and ends with her dash attack so she can generate flash freeze charges. However, I have to come clean, I lied. Since this isn't actually the only way that you can generate charges, but doing so is actually less reliable. This is a segue into talking about Ellen's skill and its EX versions. Sorry about that, but there is some truth to this. First and foremost, take note of this resource bar beneath your health. This is known as your energy bar. Agents gain energy passively over time when they are on field, and basic attacks, dodge counters, and dash attacks generate energy too. When casting Ellen's skill, without at least 40 energy, this is where the tick mark is by the way, she will cast a very lackluster, unenhanced skill that does pretty much no damage. When the bar is at least 40, she will cast Tail Swipe, which does deal decent ice damage and also provides 1 charge when you hit an enemy. If you have 80 energy, you can cast both the first special and a new 2nd special attack. The 2nd attack deals even more damage than the 1st and has a huge multiplier to show for it. It also provides a single flash freeze charge as well. Now the reason this is a less ideal way of generating flash freeze charges is because you'd need at least 40 energy every time you'd want to deal a single ice infused attack. It does give you insane damage, but this is just unrealistic. Now to be clear, I still haven't explained the best way to take advantage of Ellen's 3rd basic attack, and that's because it's actually through your EX skills. After casting either EX special attack, you can also immediately begin the 3rd part of Ellen's basic attack string and avoid the initial parts just by using your skill. This is a huge increase in damage if you use it correctly, so make sure to keep this option in mind. The final thing I'd like to mention is that Ellen's chain attacks, assists, and ultimate all do great damage. Despite that being the case though, they are simply just daze and damage that is applied to the enemy when you do them, so it's not that worth mentioning, just make sure to do them when they show up. So now that her kit has been broken down, let's talk about the various combos and ways to approach combat with her kit in ZenlessZoneZero. The first thing we need to discuss is how fights are designed. Although some guides currently discuss what to do after an enemy is stunned, keep in mind that most, if not all, boss encounters summon additional enemies for you to deal with. Because of that, you'll need to use several combos together to deal with later fights. With this, there are 2 combos that we need to talk about. The first combo is for when you are either fighting multiple non-boss enemies or for when you aren't fighting a stunned boss, and this will have you on Ellen only doing all the damage. To begin this combo, enter Roaming Hunt, follow this with a charged dash attack, and afterward, use your basic attacks to finish them off quickly. Alternatively, if the monsters are still alive, use a second charged dash attack to group up monsters more tightly after your first, and then finish them off with your basics from there. This combo is very straightforward, with the goal being to save your energy and still do as much damage as possible. The second combo, however, is for when you are fighting a boss. In this case, you want them to be stunned and for your main damage dealer to have high energy and be buffed prior to unleashing their max damage combo. And once the damage combo is over, ideally you swap back to the stunner so they can begin working towards dazing the boss again. So begin the second combo by first swapping off of Sokaku, activate Ellen's EX skill twice, follow this with their third basic attack, use the remainder of your energy to use an EX skill again, follow with another third basic attack, and end with a long charged dash attack followed by swapping to your stunner. This combo is the boss killer, burst heavy, and Ellen's big damage combo. A few things worth mentioning about this is that the combo is still your best option even if you don't have max energy for every single EX skill. Removing an EX skill or two will not stop this from being great damage when facing bosses, so with these two combos in mind, here's what we know. If you're fighting easy enemies, you aren't fighting a boss who is stunned yet, or when you are fighting several enemies, use combo 1 to reduce fights to a one-on-one and then proceed from there. If you are fighting a boss, however, use the second combo after stunning and buffing up your main damage dealer. Both have their strengths for using them. Now this next section is going to get heated. There are a lot of different usable 4-piece options for Ellen's best set right now, but there is no single correct answer for which is best. 3 most competitive sets right now are Puffer, Polar Metal, and Woodpecker Electro, but each has their own reason for being great. Puffer Electro is stronger than any other set when you're primarily doing bursts like Combo 2 and when fighting bosses. Polar Metal is strongest when you're using Combo 1 and fighting multiple mobs or aren't using your second combo as often. And now finally for Woodpecker Electro, this is strongest if you want a set that performs better than both of the prior sets on average. There are a few considerations that aren't only damage focused though, that you may also want to consider. Maintaining uptime on some of these sets' passives may be a reason to take Polar Metal over a set like Woodpecker or Puffer Electro. And another consideration is that farming for Woodpecker leaves you farming for Soul Rock, which is not that great of a set currently. By comparison, Polar and Puffer do have sets that you would be farming for that are also usable on some of the better characters currently, assuming that you decided to farm for them instead of Woodpecker. So ultimately, there is a lot to take into consideration, but strictly when it comes to damage, you would take Woodpecker as the most generally usable DPS set. If you plan on fighting multiple enemies or more trash mobs, you can definitely consider using Polar Metal, especially since the 4-piece effect is fairly easy to keep up, and it applies when you're fighting most enemies in ZenlessZoneZero. And our final choice, Puffer, is again only primarily if you're fighting bosses or very short burst rotations, but keep in mind that regardless of whether you choose to take non-damage factors as reasons to farm other sets, my recommendation is still Woodpecker, specifically for the DPS reasons that I listed above. Side note, I know maintaining uptime does kind of count as a DPS reason, but it's more like a skill issue than it literally does less damage than something else. Now on to Ellen's best W engine, aka weapon. This is very simple. Her best weapon by far is her signature, with it providing an insane amount of crit rate, ice damage, and total value regardless of scenario. But if this isn't an option, Starlight Engine will be your go-to 4-star choice since it is buyable via the gadget store and also provides the highest damage output. Knight's combo is also fairly easy to maintain, since quick assists on Ellen are quite accessible alongside Sokaku, but you might be wondering why the cannon rotor isn't the recommended 4-star here. The reason for this is because of its passive not being able to crit, and it also not being upgradable to its highest level copy in comparison to Starlight Engine, which can receive all of its upgrade all the way to 5. But now that we have Ellen's weapon decided on, let's talk her main stat and substat focus. Ellen and most ZenlessZoneZero crit carries are built the exact way you think they are. The main stats of the first, second, and third discs are set in stone, but regarding the fourth disc, she is crit focused, so taking a crit damage or crit rate main stat is perfect. For her fifth slot, taking ice damage percent or attack percent works well. However, element damage is definitely going to be better. And finally, her sixth slot is best as an attack percent main stat, considering there really isn't anything else you could take in this slot. For the substats you should be looking for on all disc drives, crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent are the most important currently. Flat rate and pen are ideal too if you can find them, but that's not the concern here. One small optimization I do want to talk about when you're considering her build is swapping out a crit rate main 4th slot disc if you end up using her weapon. Since the weapon itself gives you so much crit rate, it could be worth it for you to just get crit damage instead, but as always, this depends on your crit ratio and how much crit rate / crit damage you have. Before we get into team building, I do want to quickly review the Mindscapes aka duplicate system for Ellen. Of course, these are just for those who choose to pull extra copies of her, but it's worth reviewing nonetheless. The 1st and 6th Mindscapes are definitely the standouts for Ellen specifically, but her other Mindscapes also increase her damage by a decent amount, though they may be harder to notice or rely on. The 1st Mindscape allows you to generate more flash freeze charges and also increases her damage by a decent amount with its crit, but if you're using this against a boss, the additional flash freeze charges don't really do anything for you. Now obviously this one is her 6th Mindscape, but the 6th is a massive spike in damage with it increasing her pen ratio and also providing her with a 250% increase in damage for her dash attack. This makes any string or combo when using her dash attack way higher value, and since you do it quite a bit in combo 1, the value here is insane. But let's finally talk team building. Ellen really only has 2 options for a team, and you'll understand why in a moment. Let's talk about Sukaku, who is one of her most irreplaceable team members. She synergizes super well with Ellen since she gives a 500 to 1000 scaling attack buff, alongside a massive 20% ice damage increase. But on top of this, she is also free once you clear the 3rd frontier and stable node for Shio defense. Some argue that replacing Sukaku for Lucy or another character may be an option in the support slot of Ellen's team. However, this is honestly not advisable since she's already given for free, and even using Sukaku with minimal to no investment would still provide Ellen with insane value. The real question then is her option for her 2nd, or I guess technically 3rd, but should really be 2nd team member. The obvious choice here is Light Cone since he reduces ice damage resistance by 25%, increases stun damage taken by the enemy by 35%, and also pairs well with Ellen's attribute and activates her faction. The value he adds to Ellen in total, in fact, roughly equates to a 50% increase in damage when you tune everything properly. But then that begs the question, who can replace Light Cone? Ellen Ambi Sukaku honestly plays the exact same, since the role of stunner is not that much different between different agents. However, this definitely performs worse since you don't have Light Cone's stun damage bonus or his ice shred. That being said, Ambi and Sukaku are both free and accessible, so even if you weren't able to get Light Cone immediately, do keep in mind however that Ambi does hold a spot in a lot of team compositions as their stunner depending on what you choose to play, and this is just something to keep in mind when you're deciding what teams to run or what characters to invest in. That's going to be it for this video though guys, thank you again for watching. I think Ellen is absolutely ridiculous, and although there are some concerns about her being future proof or not, the point of this video was not to say whether or not she'd be worth it or whether you should be pulling for her. That's a completely different conversation. This is just everything you need to know about Ellen, and if you made it this far, thanks again for watching, I appreciate it. The support you guys have been giving the ZenlessZoneZero videos have been absolutely crazy, and I hope to give you guys even more quality, but I hope you guys learned something or gained something from this video. As always guys, if you want to check out the rest of my socials or leave a comment, turn on the notification bell, all that stuff, etc. I'll see you all on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, good night. Whoa, you made it through another ZenlessZone video. Make sure to check out the other ones. Haha, I messed up that 3 times. Anyways guys, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure to check out what YouTube has recommended. I would probably do the same. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.